And we are live. Hello everyone, welcome back to Hex Studios. In this video, I'm remastering my old firework animation. Now, before we get into it, I must make a quick confession. 1 year ago, I uploaded this animation on pixel art. Looks pretty cool and smooth, right? Well, it's starting to get a lot of attention and I only have one small problem with that. I never made the sprites for the fireworks at all. Yeah. The only way I feel like I can ever make it up is to make a new one entirely. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into it! To begin with this project, I quickly drew out the concept of the setting and art style this remaster was going to take place in. The best setting I thought would probably be a city. I also decided to try an 8-bit style to limit the number of colors used in this one. Yeah, we'll come back to this topic a bit later. At first, I was trying to make the rail look 3D, but then I thought it would take away the 8-bit aesthetic since 8-bit games are normally fixed in 2D. Once I got an outline of the rail and the wall, I moved on to the buildings that would end up in the background. For the buildings, I decided to give each and every one of them a unique shape, scale, and look. Every facade in this having a different color representing its size. I did end up shortly scrapping the blue buildings since I thought it would end up distracting everyone from the fireworks since it takes way too much space from the canvas. It also doesn't look as good as I envisioned it in my mind. So, after failing to come up with an idea for the blue buildings, I just decided to put my focus on the first set of buildings. To build upon those foundations, I attempted to add utility poles. However, like before, it just didn't look as great as I thought it would. So instead I went back to making big buildings in the background again. However, this time I restricted it to only two. One really tall and one being two conjointed cylindrical buildings. I gave the left building a wide window that was just going to be repeated until it passed the canvas below. However, I immediately stopped once I saw the first window because, yeah, it's a no from me. After that, I shifted my focus back to the first layer of buildings, giving them windows, ladders, doors, balconies, and even some generators. I even added one satellite on one building that you'll almost never see in the final product, since it blends in with the background that well. From there, I gave each window a unique interior. Most windows are similar, but each of them is completely different. Once the buildings at the bottom were finally complete, it was time to move up to the next floor. For the next layer of buildings, I wanted it to be a mix of houses and shops, since their size was much grander compared to the first set of buildings. To begin with, I added a small mansion to the left side with a long glass border, indicating it was a long balcony. Now looking at the right side, I thought of adding buildings with LED, since they looked really cool and it just adds more life than everything being dark. But I decided to scrap the idea after trying it twice because it just didn't look great at all since I had limited space on the canvas. I'll leave that idea for something else in the future. Maybe. Probably. Who knows? Moving on, it was at this point of the remaster I decided to add different materials to the buildings to make them even more distinctive from one another. This was done by adding a nice brick texture to two buildings and even gave the center one a nice roof with a chimney. A great way to make it special compared to the other ones. To compensate for the LED building idea, I ended up just placing a massive poster with a totally real company name. At least I think it's fake, right? Hold on, let me just, Xylo. Oh. Oh, no. No, it's actually real. That's kind of cool, actually. Well, you're welcome, Xylo, I guess. Anyway, I added a few lines to it to show more of a theater look to it, and I decided to rip a few corners from the sign just to show more realism to it, showing it's been there for quite a long time and had much better days. I also tried to add the word hope next to it, but the O ended up getting obscured by the door in front of it. After some thought, I think it would just probably be best to leave it there. Besides, it adds more realism and depth to the remaster. Shortly after that, I added a couple of windows and gave the building a nice concrete look to it. For the last building on the right, I pretty much just gave it a brick wall texture. And just like that, the second row of buildings are done. And now it was time to move on to the third and final floor. Let's do this! It's time to finish this background. Those two big boy buildings have been dawning for their time to be finished. And now, that time has finally arrived. Without any thought, I immediately went for the building on the right because I didn't want to deal with the one on the left at the moment. From there, I delved into many ideas. Car parks, a business facade, a massive LED TV that would display a rainbow of electric colors, and much more. I ended up scrapping all of them since they all looked terrible. They're cool concepts, don't get me wrong, but they didn't seem to fit with the ideal art style I was going for. What did fit in was this great glass design I did, connecting the two towers even more. After that, I colored the glass diagonally in a looping pattern and fixed a few glass columns that looked crooked. Now onto the giant, and oh boy, this thing was the challenge to get around to. I took one look at its current state and just knew right there and then, it's not gonna fit in with everyone looking like that. This building needs a new look fast. First things first, we need to change the shape of this facade. There, that's way better already. Fits in with the others easily, but I want more. I want this building to be the best of them all. So, I gave it a small level of depth by adding two lines in the middle of the darker side. From there, I added windows in the shape of L's. This was done to show it was completely dark and far away from our perspective. It looks way better, but it's still not enough. I want this one to go even further beyond. So for the other face, I wanted to give it more of a circuitry look to it. I wanted a progression between simple and complex. And after completing it, I made it look like a Tetris building. It wasn't what I was going for, but you know what? I can roll with this. This fits. Now for the color. Perfect. And just like that, it's time to see what this thing looks like in all of its glory. You're all gonna love this, trust me. Fire, huh? Really does illuminate the night. All of the colors really give life to this reimagined remastered. Now that it's finally complete at its fullest, you want to know how I did this? Yes. Alright then, let's get into it. First thing I did was create the fireworks sprites, and let's just say I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. So eventually, by watching some fireworks and games and animations, I took another attempt and made these three different variants. From there, I broke the background into three different layers, the first being the sky, the next one being the fireworks, and the final one being the buildings. I then made the fireworks shoot up to the sky, but I didn't want all of them to be straight. I wanted some of them to go in different directions and different heights to spice up the variety even more. Once they reached their maximum height, they would explode, shattering into several particles, but it looked and felt off, as if something was missing. Then it hit me. There needs to be a sense of lighting when the fireworks explodes at its fullest. So, I made a couple of circles in the background to represent the fireworks emitting light. And looking at how this looked, it completely worked. And then I realized I had to do the same with the buildings as well. So, I started focusing on the edges of the buildings and it looked even better. But if you know me, you know that I want to achieve something at its fullest. I did eventually do the buildings as well. I even recolored every facade matching to the color of the fireworks. or the conjointed buildings, I made their glass shine depending on where each firework was and how powerful it was. The same can be said with the L-shaped windows, now turning into a square if the firework is either next to them or very powerful. Just to spice up the variety even more, I also added orange firework rockets. These would shoot up to the sky while emitting particles. Now, onto the megawork. I did want this firework to have mini fireworks go around it in a circle just like its predecessor. However, this wasn't going to work out for one reason alone. The canvas was too small to fit all 8 fireworks. So, I decided to make a bigger firework, double the size of the one before. By doing this, I was able to get a really cool big white firework that fits in the background perfectly. The multicolor idea was heavily inspired by Stardust Breaker. I even added a quick squench to the firework before it explodes to really show that reference. However, this is when I ran into 2 small problems. The first one being that I've used way too many colors somehow, and the problem with that is that Piscal wouldn't render the full thing properly, whether that be by colors or layer alterations. This can be ignored with a PDF if you're making pixel art alone, but animation is a different story. To get past this problem, I went back and changed the Megaworks color sprites by using colors I've already used in the palette. The second problem with this is that the Megawork went off way too fast. I thought decreasing the frame rate would work, and it did, but it made the previous fireworks much slower, making it look worse on that side. Eventually, I decided to add 2 extra frames, the middle one showing the Megawork at its fullest, burning the sky with all the colors. The last thing I did before ending it off was just adding particles to the Megaworks line and fixing where it would land before the Megawork would explode. And just like that, the remaster was finally complete. However, I asked myself one question, just one question alone. Is there anything I would do differently now if I could? Honestly, yes. To begin with, the lighting on the glass on the right works, but realistically the light just completely fades away within seconds. However, this was already suffering from the number of colors I have used, so this can be ignored. Another thing I would have done differently is to make the canvas bigger, just to add more buildings in the far back, away from the scene, but that just risks the software from crashing by just doing the simplest things, so this can also just be ignored. The last thing I would change would have to be the number of fireworks in this animation. I would have added more fireworks in different colors, but the animation was already past 100 frames and was also suffering from the amount of colors. So I would consider ignoring this, but however, I really wished I could have added more fireworks in different colors. Aside from that, it's perfect the way it is, a massive improvement compared to its first version. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay awesome and enjoy the show!